Um, Shane Grammer is a multidisciplinary artist, and we'll talk about what that means in a few minutes. He's an established modern-inspired painter, sculptor. He's worked for Disney, does set design. He paints sets, does a lot of murals. He's done a couple at least here in Sacramento for Wide Open Walls, one in 2019, one 2020. And just last weekend, he did another one over in Del Paso Heights, which is amazing portrait of Frederick Douglass, which we'll talk a little bit about. Shane grew up near Paradise up in Chico. And so without further ado, I'm gonna let Shane introduce himself, let him tell you a little bit about himself, and then we'll get into some questions. Take it away, Shane.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. I really appreciate you and what you're doing for the arts community, and so many artists, as you're an artist yourself and have a passion for it. So thank you for the platform and giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I will tell you all that I heard Shane on an interview at NPR, and he had me in tears by the end of it. And I thought to myself, boy, if I ever get to talk to this guy, I really want to do so. And I will tell you, he's much taller in person than he appears in the photographs. So Shane, how did you get started in working in set design?
Yeah, well, I started out, doing legal graffiti because I just love the art form. When I graduated from Chico High in 1991, I lasted about a semester and a half in junior college at Butte College. At that time, I really didn't have any direction, didn't know what I was doing or where I wanted to be or where I was going to go. But I remember one day walking into the library, which is downstairs, and some color caught my eye out of the corner of my eye, and I went right over there, and it was those old little boxes, those little TV screens where people would watch VHS documentaries. Well, this guy was doing a report on New York subway graffiti art, and it was a documentary called Style Wars, and so this is documenting like late 70s, early 80s graffiti in New York City, and absolutely captured me. That was it. I mean, I'm in a youth group, so I'm not going to go do it illegally, but I went to youth groups, I went to friends, anything. Can I paint on your fence? I even practiced in a beehive company in Durham, California. A friend of mine managed it, and he would let me come in late at night and gave me this huge old wooden wall, and I would practice techniques and different types of graffiti art on that wall inside that building. Had guns pulled on me by the police. It was so random. I had so many stories, but so that was an art form that kind of launched me. But I always had a knack, like you said, I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I loved making things, sculpting. And then I did a huge graffiti mural for a youth convention in Sacramento. And these guys, they're anybody that's creative, they just kind of latched onto you and like, hey, I've got all these ideas. And the following year, they said, hey, can you do stage props? And I'm like, sure. Started to learn how to do foam sculptures. And then one of the coolest things that ever happened to me in my life was I met this guy, a Hollywood sculptor. His name's Thomas Pottage. He passed away. He had cancer. But he was a Hollywood sculptor down in LA, and he got sick from cancer and had to come back up to Sacramento. And I went and met with him for 4 hours one day. And I swear that my knowledge of sculpting grew 4 years of experience just sitting there and going through his portfolio, him critiquing my work and just chatting. And he worked on all these films, like the first Batmans, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Hook. He did the skeleton on the ship on Hook. He sculpted the alligator that fell on Captain Hook at the end of the movie in that show. All kinds of films. And so I'm geeking out because I just love that type of work. So that's how I kind of started to launch into wanting to, figure out this whole dimensional world.
Nice. Now, do you still do any of that work?
I mostly freelance. I had my own shop for many years. I went from being 2 to 4 guys to 2016. I had 55 people on payroll, and I hated it. It almost killed me because I went from, I was the only guy getting the work. So I was shaking hands, kissing babies, doing all the sales, pulling in the projects, and I wasn't doing anything creative anymore. And the writing on the wall was, to sustain what I was building or go bigger, I had to have fiberglass rating, spray fiberglass chopper guns and spray booths and all this kind of stuff, a bigger building. And I hated it.
Yeah, that's all the stuff that artists don't like to do, all the regulations. We just like to be kind of footloose and fancy free. And yeah, I get
Absolutely.
that. So how many murals have you done here in Sacramento?
I have Harriet Tubman on Martin Luther King Boulevard in Oak Park. And then I kind of did 2 murals, which I made them one big mural on Del Paso Boulevard. And that was 2019, Wide Open Walls in 2020. So that would be 3. Then I did a Martin Luther King on Del Paso Boulevard. And then I just did the Frederick Douglass, so 5.
Yeah, now Frederick Douglass is at the library, the community library there in Del Paso, and it is stunning. If you don't follow Shane on Instagram or anything, you can see a shot of it if you friend him on Instagram or follow him on Instagram, I should say. I was just like, wow, I got to go see this in person. It just looks amazing. And he dropped off art, and then I all of a sudden looked down and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? And literally 5 hours later, he's walking away from a finished mural. And I was like, I only wish I could do things like that. So, Shane, how did you come about wanting to do this thing in Paradise? Like, set the stage. You were just kicking it at home. How did that come about?
Yeah, two things, and remind me if I forget, but one is midlife crisis. Second is, it was timing, which is really strange because I did a full circle from where I started in my passion when I was younger to trying to become a businessman and building a business that I hated. And so when I shut my company down, I moved down to LA because I have a lot of connections in the theme park industry. I worked for Walt Disney Imagineering for a short time. And I'm a signed Disney artist now. So I have paintings in the Disney park galleries. So I'm in Disney World, California Adventure, Disneyland, and that I know of. I could be in other spots too, but so I just have a lot of connections in that. But I moved down to LA immediately, and I just became a concept artist or an art director for a company. And they were great, treated me really well. Money just wasn't that awesome. And, and I moved down to LA and I wanted to make more money. And then I ended up working for another company, a scenic shop. That's what I was. So we design and fabricate large scale sculptures that you see in major parks and attractions. If it's Disneyland, Universal, SeaWorld, and then those are the big guys, but then there's all these smaller museums and water parks and things like that are can be more lucrative than what they call the IP companies, intellectual property. And I got fired within 6 months. And because scenic shops are it's hard to explain, but they're almost like cowboys, just wild cowboys, because you got a lot of guys that aren't making good money that are very talented artisans, sculptors, but you have finishers, welders, a lot of fabrication type of people. and it's a lot of blow and go. I mean, you get a big contract in, but you got to knock it out. But there's usually always 3 or 4 projects going on at the same time with tight deadlines. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. I mean, and the industry is very competitive. And so I worked with this company, and I came in and wanted to kind of clean up everything and streamline a kind of a series of projects. I'm trying to be politically, not drop names, but basically I felt like I cleaned things up and streamlined and made this whole project so it would go smoother. And I did, but a lot of people don't want to work that way. They just want to by the fly, what do you call it, by your hip? It's just like,
yeah,
get it done, get it out the door. I don't care. And so when they fired me, I was already at a place where even all these years when I had my own shop and I was working for other shops, I would still always follow street artists. I would do paintings. So my paintings were very street art / modern contemporary, if you want to call it. So I was still following all these artists that I love, and I follow artists that do work in abandoned locations. There's a lot of photography or photographers that love to go and shoot abandoned locations.
Yeah.
And I love it. Absolutely love it. And what I talked about many times, because people would always ask me, is why I'm kind of backing up again, but why did I paint women on all these burnt down structures? Well, for about 22 years now, I've been doing an ongoing series called The Bride. And The Bride is based off of the book in the Bible, Song of Solomon, which is the love story. It's the love storybook in the Bible. And it's this whole story about King Solomon in love with the Shulamite woman. But a lot of Christians see it as an allegory where King Solomon is Jesus and the Shulamite woman is us, his beloved, his love, his mankind, mankind. So I had this kind of deep story. There's a lady that did a teaching on it, and it really captured me, and it really kind of infected my artwork in many ways. So going back to, we're living in LA, and I just been fired from a company. So I immediately started to send out emails to past clients, friends, people that I've worked with. And I picked up like 6 freelance projects. So now I'm instantly a freelance artist in the theme park industry. And I knew that I could get enough work to take care of my family. My wife and I have 3 girls. My wife's a full-time stay-at-home homeschool mom, so she's busy. And I joke around and I say we have 3 beautifully strong-willed young ladies. So it's my income, and I needed to hustle, and so I started freelancing, and then I started picking up mural projects because that's what I was pushing. But I kind of had to get back into the game. It's been a lot of years since I've done a street art type of mural. I've done very commercial designed murals that you would see in attractions and things like that. But it's interesting because the theme park industry is not going to care about my street art. Street art's going to laugh at me if I show them my theme park industry, even though it's the same skills, it's just a different approach to art. So pursuing my passion, I started to do, I did a mural for free in an alleyway in San Luis Obispo. And what was it going to be? It was a beautiful woman's face with a red rose. And my daughter and I did it together. We did it in a day. And cool. Number one, I just put something new in my portfolio. Well, we were taking a family vacation to Las Vegas, and we drove by this abandoned water park that's riddled with graffiti. And I'm like, I told my wife, oh my gosh, when we come back home, we've got to go over there and check this place out. So we did. When I go there, there's 2 guys doing graffiti, in the middle of the day, because it's abandoned out in the middle of nowhere. And so my daughter and I went back there, and I painted this image of this beautiful portrait of this woman's face, which I really love the narrative of painting this beautiful woman who represents so much softness, beauty, strength in the middle of destruction. To me, I just think, oh my gosh, it's so awesome. You know, this deserted structure that's rusted or, you know, broken, or a broken wall, which I did. I found at the water park, I found this wall that was half broken with chunks of plaster, and it was like leaning forward. I'm like, that's the perfect wall right there. So that's my second mural. I think it was about 2 days after that mural that I started seeing Facebook posts from the fire in Paradise, because I still have family that live in Chico, and my parents live in Orland. And when Shane and Jennifer Edwards, they were the first mural I did. That's Beauty Among the Ashes, the chimney. When I saw that chimney pop up on Facebook, I just immediately, I mean, you're an artist. So as an artist, when you see something, I just knew I had to paint that. And then what am I going to paint? I'm going to paint, you know, the Shulamite woman, just because it was for me, honestly, and for my friends. I truly thought nobody was going to care. And like, you know, who's going to really care that I'm painting this portrait in an abandoned water park? It was just my passion. I just couldn't wait to be more and more creative as much as I could be. That's what I wanted. And so I started to reach out to Shane and Jennifer. It took some time because this was like right after the fire. They couldn't even go up to their property to see if their house was even there. And then that was about a 3-week process after contacting Shane, that he finally got back. And at first he got back and said, bro, I'd love for you to do that. So that would be amazing. But we just got to wait till we can get up there.
Wow. Wow. So you basically looked around once you got up there and saw other perspective places, and then went to talk to the folks that owned the land. Is that how it went?
What happened was I went up there. I actually had a mural client in Sacramento. I just finished that mural. And then my wife's birthday is on December 31st. So we celebrated her birthday.
That's my wife's birthday too.
Hey, good day.
Hey.
One day later, being a year older. No. So we celebrated her birthday, and I already had it all figured out and planned that I was going to go from Roseville after a birthday party and go up and stay at my friends in Chico. And then I was going to get up, meet Shane, and we were going to go together up in Paradise, and then I'd paint on the chimney. So I had all my materials. Went up there, we had breakfast together, kind of, because when you're in Paradise, especially in that first 6 months, no matter who you talk to, you're going to hear a survivor story. You're going to hear their story, because it was extremely raw, and people are just really, really going through it, and they still are. So Shane and I had breakfast. He shared how he didn't evacuate, but he had his wife evacuate, and that's a story in itself. She didn't really think it was going to be that big of a deal, like a lot of people in Paradise. But long story short, by the time she pulled out the laptop and a few things from the house, burning embers were falling on her car. And then she doesn't even really remember what happened after that. She just got on the phone with her husband, and he just guided her all the way down the hill. And by the time she got onto the main road, that whole side of that hill was on fire. You know, so I'm hearing all this, and then we get in my truck and we start to drive up a Skyway. And the first thing that kind of hit me was to the right was that base camp. I don't know if you went up there, but there's a huge base camp of just, I don't want to exaggerate, but it seemed like thousands of work trucks, and tents were up, and command centers. It looked like it was something out of like Close Encounters of the Third Kind or something like that. And that's the first time where it hit me, man, this is serious. And then as we got into town, you would see gas station signs. So it just, oh, okay, this is still normal. But as you got closer to that gas station, the gas station's gone. Just the signs there. You know, and it's just started to really impact you emotionally. And then by the time we got to his house, that whole area was just completely wiped out. And the mural only took about 3 hours to do. I used a spray paint that I love. It's called Montana 94. And they have a transparent line. So there's a transparent black and a transparent white. And I only had 4 colors. So transparent black, transparent white, opaque black, and opaque white. Because I didn't want this mural to feel like a mural. I wasn't going to sign it or anything like that. I wanted it to feel like it was a part of the structure. And the transparent paint gave me the ability to paint on this substrate, but still see the texture that's existing. And that was very important.
And what was the name of that one?
Beauty Among the Ashes. And the community labeled that mural Beauty Among the Ashes. So I painted in about 3 hours, and then it took me about an hour to take footage. I did some GoPro footage with my iPhone, took my photos. I put it on my social media. My social media, it didn't really do anything that was that, you know, outstanding or crazy. You could tell it was touching people, but Shane, the owner of the home, later on that evening reposted my post on the Paradise Campfire Survivors Facebook page. And that's where it locally went viral or kind of blew up.
So I'm going to share my screen so that everybody can see the one that we're talking about. That way you get a visual. Okay, do you guys see my screen?
Not yet. It's loading. There it is.
So this is the one that Shane's talking about, Beauty Among the Ashes. This was the first one. It is absolutely stunning.
Yeah. I was so happy when I was done, just because of how beautiful it is.
Yeah. So
what happened that night is Shane, after he posted it on the Paradise Campfire Survivors site, Shane called me and said, dude, you got to get on that page and look at the comments. And so my wife and I got on there, and we literally started crying after it. It felt like from the comments, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it felt like it was the first glimmer of beauty or the first glimmer of hope for many people in that area. That mural was. I heard stories of a lady came around, and I didn't know because I came from a different way. And then if you came south on Clark Road, you would come around this bend and boom, she's looking right at you. And I didn't know that till like a month later. But one lady said that she pulled over and just wept. And because of those comments that night, that's when my wife looked at me and said, you got to go back up there and keep painting.
Wow. So now, this is one that we have here in the gallery, Sleeping Woman. And this is your wife?
That's my wife, Missy.
Tell us about this one.
Yeah, so this is a unique story. So, my faith is very, very important to me. And it comes to play with this whole thing is this owner, his name is Brian Andrews. That chimney behind this wall that I painted on was in the paper. You can see the stockings.
Yes.
So he actually set up stockings and Christmas lights and got onto the Paradise paper because of that, because he was trying to, do something positive and fun. But Brian emailed me literally like 4 or 5 times, and I hated the wall. It was totally not inspirational, and it's super rocky and rigid. But finally, after like the 4th or 5th email, I prayed. It was 11 o'clock at night. I just said, God, I don't know what to do. I don't have any inspiration for this wall. But this guy is coming after me so much. I really want to just do something for him. And I just said, can you please give me inspiration? Shut my computer off, went to bed. The next morning, I literally woke up, turned over in bed, and that's what I saw. My wife sleeping, facing me. And then as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, thank you, God. I got as quiet as I could, I got my camera and went click. And like a smart husband, later on, I told her what I did, and she staged it because she wanted her hair more fluffy. Don't tell anybody.
We won't tell her. We
Yeah,
won't tell her.
keep it a secret.
That's awesome. I have to say that this one is one of my favorites, just because you're looking through the structure at this and hope peering through. It has this metaphor for what you're doing, and it just is, I think, so incredible. And when I look at this, as burn victims often do, like you see the spots on her forehead that almost look like she's been burned, because you get that lack of melanin in your skin when you've been a burn victim, right? And so
Yeah.
this one is just, this one touches me beyond measure.
Yeah. I liked, okay, so every time I went onto a location, at first glance, most of the locations, you could easily just go, there's nothing here. And I learned after about four of the different properties, locations that I went on, that you just had to take your time, walk around, and go all the way around it and look from different perspectives. And being inspired by a lot of these artists and photographers that do stuff that are unique and out of the box, I wanted something that was not in your face, because this was right on Pearson Road. So if you're coming from Skyway driving up Pearson, you would never see this mural. You would have to look behind you to look into the window just to see it. Now, if you're coming from Clark Road on Pearson heading towards Skyway, you could still miss it, unless if you looked right over to your left and looked right into the window, and then it was one of those oh my gosh moments, somebody's looking right at me, looking through my soul. And that's, as I walked around that location, that was like the perfect spot to do that painting.
And is this someone that that you have friend or someone you know?
Not this one, no. So I would just tell people it was part of my bride series. So I literally had a stack of printed out, because I've been doing portraits for years. So I have tons of what I call beautiful but moody, portrait photography. And then I would just kind of flip through them. Sometimes I would plan them out, and then sometimes I would just kind of wing it and look at the images and see which one would fit that spot.
So tell us a little bit about the Helen Pace Memorial.
Yeah, so growing up in Chico, California, there was an awesome guy named Gary and Vicky Drews, and they were friends. He was my Sunday school teacher. He was kind of my basketball coach, and I worked for him for years. He owns a drywall company in Chico. We would do a lot of work up in Paradise. And he got a hold of me and found out, because he found out through the news that I was doing these murals. And he let me know, well, his brother, Ron, and his Ron's wife, Susie, that Helen is Susie's mom. And Gary called me and said, hey, Susie and Ron lost their home. This is their home. But then Susie also lost her mother in the fire. And so that one was definitely way more intense. And we went through some kind of, I would go through Gary would communicate with his family, because, they just lost their home and everything. So they were kind of moving around. to different family to be taken care of. And then they got back to me saying, yeah, that would really bless the family if you would consider doing this mural. And so we did, and that's been something that's really, really blessed their family.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Susie tried to go get her mom, but that whole area, I believe she was in the mobile home park that burnt down, and police wouldn't let, there's a barricade and they wouldn't let her go any further.
Have you watched the movie that Ron Howard produced?
I haven't. I've just heard different comments from survivors, from people from Paradise. But I haven't personally watched it.
It's very good. It's tough because it's real. They use a lot of clips of people during, you know, the evacuation of the hospital and certain things. It's
Yeah.
you know, it's tough to learn. I mean, that's the thing with this, with Carrie's and your work is, you know, fire here in California, it's just a part of our everyday life, right?
Mhm.
That is what we do. And
Yeah.
I got up, I think it was when I got home last night, and it smelled like smoke. And I'm like, oh my God, we're not yet to March, or we're March 2nd. What is this?
Yeah.
And my eyes were kind of burning, and I just couldn't believe that, you know, here we are, and we're almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sad. So how did the experience in Paradise change you as an artist?
Oh gosh. Well, that's I think I'm pretty sure that most artists feel this way, but we all want to create artwork that moves people emotionally in a deep way. And I felt that way for years. You know, we talked about this when I was at the gallery. I could sit, I've sat in front of a Mark Rothko and cried, you know, at a museum. I've sat in front of the Jackson Pollock in New York, and I was just like, my God, I want to create artwork that moves people like this emotionally. I'm a mess inside. And because I'm extremely passionate about creating artwork. And I've always kind of like, I had a, you know, like another prayer was just like, you know, when you listen to music, music is perfect. Music can really move you, and you can hear a song 30 years later and it reminds you of a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or a, you know, or a time warps you to a certain time that you might have forgot about, you know, something like that.
Yeah, it brings you right back there.
It brings you right back, you know, especially the 80s kids. And we had good music back then. So, and I just wanted to create artwork like that. And when I was doing the whole theme park thing, you know, we were creating amazing projects, but it wasn't Jackson Pollock or Mark Rothko. So I would say that was probably the most rewarding for me, was that I finally created artwork that really connected with people in such a deep way. I still have people fall in my arms and weep. And that just happened a month ago in Paradise. And I honestly think, okay, it's done, it's over, you know, people are going to forget about it. And then I run into somebody, and then they find out I'm the artist. They will break down and just tell me, you know, thank you for what you have done. And then I'm a good listener, so I just listen to their story, and then, you know, and then I tell them people all the time, it's because of people like you and your story and how it affected you that makes me want to continue to create artwork like this that moves people and brings them hope.
Yeah, it is a really great feeling when that happens. So, you know, when you were here at the gallery, you and I talked about you've got a little something coming up, or coming out, I should say, a book.
Oh yeah. So yeah, okay. So thank you.
That's
I
my
got to
job.
drink some water here. Yeah, I knew a lot of people had books coming out like for the first year anniversary, and I knew I wanted to do something that was like that, but I wanted to take my time because I just wanted to document all the murals and then all the stories associated to those murals. And then down at my church, I ran into a guy. His name's David Moore, and he's written and published 2 books. Now they're funny because they're like completely the opposite. They're books on 80s, like Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes. I mean Arnold Schwarzenegger. What's the kicking karate guy, Chuck Norris. And he interviewed all these people. I mean, like the coolest dudes from, Steven Seagal and all these people he's interviewed. And he's got these really intense documenting books on 80s. I forget what he calls them, post-apocalyptic films. And so I started well, that was kind of when I met him, was kind of the heat where I was still getting international media and people. Even down here in LA, I'd go play basketball or something. This guy's like, "Hey, I just saw you on TV." And well, yeah, and that doesn't happen all the time. It's the first. But so we started talking about the stories and stuff like that. And then I would like to do a book. And then he jumped on board. So he's been working on it for a year. He's interviewed over 60 people. So there's 60. I don't know all the stats on it. I wish David was here. But it's going to be a pretty extensive book. Everything's been sent out. We signed a 6-month contract with an agent, and it's already been in front of 8 of the major publishers, but we haven't heard anything back. And that started last week. So we're in the publisher game right now. We're just hoping that somebody will sign, or we can sign with somebody. They'll offer something, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But I know there's a lot of interest locally in Paradise and the Ridge.
Yeah, because having the people's stories along with the murals that you painted, and you don't even have all of them even on your website. If you look, they're not all there. So that would be incredible. I can't wait to see. I hope that does come to fruition, because I'm going to buy a copy.
Yeah, I can't wait to have one on my table. It's going to be so cool. And there's just so many precious people that their stories are in the book, and there could have been so many more. Yeah. It's just there wouldn't have been room, but we tried to pick people that were associated with those, that were the owners of the homes or the shops. We have the mayor, Kathy Dysert from the Paradise Art Center. I could go on and on and on. Just amazing people.
Now, speaking of the art center, you go up there. Is it yearly that you go up there? And tell me about what you've done for the art center, because you've really contributed a lot up there.
Yeah, well, it started in about April. I would stay at some friends in Chico, Norm and Christina Roberts, and that's where I would stay every time I came up there to go paint. And I know I've known Christina since I was 13, and I know that she used to do like events. She'd put on events and things like that. And because of the popularity, I called her one day and I said, "Do you think that we could put on an exhibition, and raise some money? It'd be cool to, as an artist, I would like to do something that benefits the art community up in Paradise." And we got to talking about it, and we started reaching out to folks, and people were just, they were loving the idea. Basically, again, long story short, we had one night event at Monca in Chico. We had over 600 people show up. This is pre-COVID, thank God. We raised $60,000 that night, and we gave a check to Monca, who was putting on a summer program for youth survivors from Paradise, traumatized youth. And then we gave a portion also to the Paradise Art Center. And that's the first time we got to meet or work with Kathy and her team, because they're all volunteers. And after the fire, they lost, I think, over half of their not subscribers, but what do you call them?
Members.
Members, thank you. Say they lost like just about all of them. And the money that we gave them, I found out later, Kathy told me that they were able to survive for over a year. And then, so now I go back and I do a calendar, which was my wife's idea. She said, you need to get enough murals done. In the beginning, she told me this, so we can make a calendar and help survivors somehow financially. And so I do a signing, and then I come in, and Paradise I gave them their own group of prints from all the murals that they can sell and they can continue to sell. And then they have hoodies, shirts. And then honestly, again, it blows me away every time. This last signing we did, I was supposed to do a live painting, and it was from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. As soon as the doors open, I never even got to touch the painting. People came in. Some people were waiting an hour and a half in line to get a signature on some prints or the calendar. And we sold out of the calendars, and just blown away. And what's the most amazing part of it is I would meet people that we've been connecting on social media for like 2 years now. And then I'd finally meet them face to face, and their tears and, survivor stories and so many thank yous, thank you so much for what you've done. These murals have meant everything to me and my family, and there's so many stories.
Yeah, I bet. I just can't even imagine the amount of people that you have met, hugged, and just been with in a time of complete and utter tragedy in their lives. I know that my mom was extremely fearful of fire. She got burnt out once, and she always told us, if you cremate me, I will come back and haunt you for the rest of your life. That was her worst nightmare. So I think that is true for a lot of people.
I think you've done amazing things there, and the things that you are doing, and the book writing. And we lived in Magalia for 7 years, and God had prompted us to leave 6 months before that fire to move to Texas. We were ministering to the RV park up there for 4 years in Magalia, which was pretty much a homeless RV park.
Yeah.
To a lot of the people that were there. And we only missed, in those 4 years, I think 2 Wednesdays that we were there. We went rain, whatever the weather was. We fed them. Sometimes there were over 50 people that we fed. And through that fire, we had lost 5 friends of ours in that fire. And it was just devastating. And it still hurts.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that God had us leave 6 months before that.
Wow.
That is Sharon, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for the work that you did in feeding people. I mean, I think a lot of us, just even through this COVID, we've learned that how great it is to give and help people. And, sometimes we may have some sad stories, but look around and there's 10 other people that are in a worse situation than you are, and it makes you not feel so bad. That is for sure. Let me just check. I've got a couple. Okay, couple. Sorry for your losses, Sharon. Yeah, we actually here in Rancho Cordova, I meet people all the time here in the gallery that are have relocated because they've lost everything, and this is where
Yes.
they've ended up is down here. I know that right when it was happening, several of the hotels gave free rooms and things to people who were being relocated, and the hotels were really quite nice for folks down here. Shane, you started a foundation. What is the concept of your foundation?
Yeah, it's called Hope Through Art, and it's a public charity foundation, and and it's all because of Paradise. A lot of when media would come after me during the heat of all the murals in Paradise, they would always ask me, why would you do this? Why would you go paint on burnt stuff? And I kind of told them, in a way, I've been doing this my whole life. I mean, my first mural was on a missions trip. I was 19 in Ensenada, and I painted just this little mural in an orphanage in Ensenada. And since then, I've probably painted in 4 or 5 different orphanages throughout Mexico, and recently just painted in a small church in Tecate, which is the landfill for Tijuana. And this church doesn't really hold a service. It's in the middle of this kind of like dump on the outskirts of the dump, but they feed the people that live in the dump 3 times a week. So they'll feed anywhere from 100 to 150 people. And in 2010, I went to Cambodia, Swipak, where girls are sold into brothels down to 5 years old. I painted with girls that are being sold, for sex. And I've done a lot of inner city work in projects and things like that. So I've done a lot of work with really heavy kind of situations and stories. And so going back to, why would I, or, answering media and things like that, I just said, I kind of felt like I've been, doing this my whole life. And so my heart is drawn to doing things where I feel like I'm hoping I'm bringing hope, through my artwork. And then because of the response of Paradise, Paradise changed me. The Ridge changed me forever. Magalia, Concal. I want to continue to do projects like this, until I die, and I will. So I launched Hope Through Art in December of last year, 2020. I did my first project in January, which was an art installation out in the middle of the forest, and that was to bring awareness to the issues of child sex trafficking, underage trafficking. And then the Frederick Douglass was my second project that I did through my foundation. We did it for free for a public library. I thought it was Black History Month, and I wanted to celebrate a hero of mine, which is Frederick Douglass. And then this month, I'm going to do a mural in Chico that is going to fall under Forgotten Flowers, which is an issue with Native American young women and boys, where they just disappear. They're murdered, they're beaten, or they're put into the trafficking ring. And honestly, not a lot of people care. And it's just overlooked. And so we want to do a project where we actually bring in indigenous people from the Chico area. We're going to do a photograph, and I'm going to paint one of the local girls. And then these girls are also going to help me do this mural together. So those are the types of projects. And I can go on and on. I even tried to go to Lebanon after the blast, but it was just too intense because of COVID, kind of shut that down. And I wanted to go to Australia. My older daughter and I, Eliana, we wanted to go out there and paint a koala bear, on something that burnt down. This really drives me. It drives me to continue to do projects that make a difference.
Well, it's definitely, so when I was putting this show together, it started with just finding these amazing photographs of fire, and Kari Greer is just such an amazing photographer. She's was an alum here at Sac State. She grew up in Idaho. And after talking to her, I realized she and I grew up 45 minutes apart.
Oh, wow.
And in very, northern tip of Idaho. And what are the chances of that? But when she was down here at Sac State getting her degree in photography, she became a firefighter. And she would spend the summers doing wildfires and just loved the passion of both being a firefighter and that sort of helpfulness and photography, which fire does photograph really amazing. And if you come to the gallery and see the exhibit, you will definitely see that. But your art was to sort of, here's the flames of destruction that we see on a yearly basis now, on and on. But yours is why I wanted your pictures, was for that hope, because I am a true believer that art does heal people, and it helps them in more ways than sometimes than they can express, I think. So I think you are doing an absolutely stellar job. And I can't thank you enough for just all the things that you've done already and you continue to do for communities around the world.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you.
Does anybody have any, what do you got coming up next? What's on the horizon for 2021?
Oh, well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm pushing murals and art installations. I'm kind of juggling Hope Through Art projects and then Shane Grammer Arts projects. But I have some theming, some scenic type of projects, sculpting for water parks and stuff like that hitting me. And I actually have a proposal in Guam. So if I get that project, so I'm basically sculpting a 30-foot koa boat to look, authentic from the early 1900s. So that's like cement carving, which you do rock work, and trees carving. That's a lot of my background. So I've got that, and I've got a huge mural and some moon rock sculptures for another water park in the US. Waiting to see if I got that project. So I've got a few interesting projects like that, some larger scale murals, and then my Hope Through Art projects. And that keeps me busy because now we're starting to do fundraising because we might have some school districts that are going to pull us in, doing artwork to work with youth, but also to bring awareness to tobacco and vaping issues and things like that. So there's a lot of good stuff going on. It's kind of crazy.
Well, that's great. So just so you all know, if you are going to come and see the exhibit, which I hope you do, Shane has gracefully said that, so we're doing another charity here at the gallery, and that is, I think Joe's still on. There he is. There's my guy. Hey, Joe. So Joe Pick is the executive director for Firefighters Burn Institute. And basically the Firefighter Burn Institute raises money to help burn victims. So whether you're an adult or a child, it's through UC Davis. They go and they do these Fill the Boot campaigns. Well, we're doing a Fill the Boot campaign here at the MAC, and we are all donations given during the 3 weeks of this exhibit will go to the Firefighters Burn Institute. And one of the great things that I think that really does, that inspires me is the kids camp. Imagine being a kid and being burned or scarred by fire. It's already hard enough to be a kid, and then you've got people looking at you and people whispering and all the cruel things that children do to each other. But this camp allows kids who are burn victims and all alike to go to camp, get a little bit of healing, get some positive encouragement from one another, and it's just a great organization. And so Shane has gladly given 20% of any sales that he has, whether it's his non matted and framed prints, which are 11 by 14, or the framed photographs that we have in the gallery. So he continues to give, and we're really happy that that he has stepped up to the plate. Joe, is there anything about the Firefighter Burn Institute that I didn't mention?
No, you did well. First off, Shane, thank you. I got to see the exhibit. Between the exhibits of active fire to yours of the aftermath, as somebody that's been to Paradise for that fire as a firefighter, and me and my wife went to Chico to kind of assist in all the basically refugees that came to Chico after trying to find a place in after their home got destroyed in Paradise. Thank you for what you do. Our goal for the Burn Institute is to anybody that comes into Shriners or UC Davis as a burn survivor in Northern California, that we're there to support. And I thank your community for telling the story of what happens to burn survivors. So I thank you, my friend.
Right. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. He was really blown away by your work, Shane, when he came today.
Well, I appreciate you, Joe. It's it's hard for me because as an artist, I feel like, I just did some murals, but you're the guy that's out there fighting the fire. So thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you're doing for the youth. You are a hero. So great job.
Thanks.
I have a question. Doreen, are you in Paradise right now, Doreen Fogel? Because you look like you have a Paradise art poster behind you.
I know Doreen.
Yes, I'm in Paradise right now. I'm from the Paradise Art Center. And yes, Shane, you are fabulous. We love you.
And Doreen, I love you too, sweetheart.
Thank you, Shane.
Doreen, thank you for attending. Is there any thing that you'd like to add about Shane's contributions to your area?
Well, I missed the first 30 minutes, so I don't know what was shared in that part, but I can tell you the people of Paradise, the people of Magalia, the people of Concow have just been incredibly touched by the murals that Shane has created in our community. There's a few of them that are still standing. Most of them are actually gone, which people are really sad about. They've seriously touched the community here. Shane, I know you have told me stories about people coming up and crying and saying they decided to rebuild because your murals gave them hope. That is the impact that these murals have had on people of the Ridge. It's incredible.
Thank you for that, Doreen. That is awesome. I have a friend that works emergency management in San Francisco, and she spent a good period of time up there at that gargantuan command center that you mentioned earlier, Shane. And
Yeah.
She works for EMS in San Francisco, and they're often called to go to various fires, and it was overwhelming for a lot of people. Does anybody have any questions for Shane about his art, about the murals themselves? Go ahead and raise your hand and or unmute yourself. And
I do. Me.
Okay, you.
A lot of people don't really know me except
I know this voice, Stephen.
except for my voice. I experienced both fires, Camp Fire and the Berry Creek Fire. You guys all probably have seen the mural that Shane painted on my container. The rose.
Yes,
In Berry
I
Creek.
have.
Well, if you're not familiar with it, look on Shane's website and look up the rose. All you gotta do is type in Shane Grammer, Berry Creek, and the mural will show up. And Slide Production did a beautiful job. A 2-minute video of it. And I recommend you seeing that.
Awesome.
But yeah,
Thank you, Steve.
I'm in Strawberry, California right now.
Thanks for joining us all the way up there.
Yeah.
What do you have a hat on? Who else has a question for Shane?
I have a question.
Yes.
My name's Renee. I'm an art student at American River College. So just wondered if Shane could speak a little bit about, the process, kind of the artistic process of doing these types of murals. I just don't have any experience with it. So maybe a lot of you kind of understand what goes into it.
You're talking to a prodigy. He's a prodigy. He's unbelievable. I've seen him paint firsthand.
Renee, that's a great question, because I think there's a lot of artists out there, beginning or intermediate and even advanced, that have never jumped into tackling a giant piece of wall before. And I know that we have a few walls here in Rancho Cordova that want to get painted. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be working with Splash on trying to get them a mural.
Cheryl, it's cutting in and out. I'm not hearing everything that you're saying.
Well, I'm going to let you answer Renee's question.
Yeah, can you repeat that? Because when Renee was speaking, it cut out.
She would like to know your process of doing a mural. Like, she's an art student from, Renee, did you say ARC?
Yeah, ARC. Yeah.
ARC.
So just wondering about, this particular process of doing large murals, street art. I just don't have any experience with how that process goes. So if you could maybe share a little bit about that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you mean creating a concept and then applying that to a large wall?
Yeah, what's your actual, how do you lay down the layers? Go share a little bit about how you do that.
Whoa.
Sure.
That's a lot to.
Yeah. And I've been doing it a long time. So number one is here's two things that I've learned personally. One is spending more time in design, and then two, being more patient. I have found that, and maybe it's fear or lack of confidence even in myself. So for example, I will over design now. I spend a lot more time in design. So I use Adobe Photoshop. So if I'm working for a client and they've got a 10-foot wall that's 20 feet wide, I'll have a photo of that wall. I'll do the design on top of that photo so I can kind of lay it out. And then you can also lay a grid, a square foot grid over your image. Because if I know that wall is 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide, I could set up a grid that's 10 feet tall by squares and then 20 feet wide by squares. So you have some scale digitally before you even start. And then old school ways is you go to that location and you either project that image on if you're in an interior space, or if you're exterior, you can put that grid on, which is a lot of work because you got to measure, chalk it, and then you create your grid, and then you can go out and outline it right onto that square. I use what they call Scribble Grid. A lot of street artists will do that. So I can go up to any wall and I'll just do triangles, circles, and squares all over the space where I want to do my work. And then I take a picture of that with my iPad, and then I overlay my concept over that photo and drop the opacity down. And then you can see like, oh, there's the eye line right where the triangle is. I hope this makes sense. I'm kind of like throwing a lot at you. But Paradise, all of Paradise, I mostly just went up and just hand did it. Just started going for it. And that's where you can take a light color spray can. So, you know, if I'm on a dark gray wall, I might use a medium gray spray paint and then just start kind of etching, you know, start with the nose, the eye shapes, mouth, and then you start to form it that way. And then I'll go in after I get my outlines done, I'll do my block colors, you know, the main flesh tone. And then I'll come in with my shading and start to do shading and fading. And the patient part is usually when I think I'm done, like with that Frederick Douglass, if I think I'm done around 4 o'clock, that's when I go, no, I'm going to spend another hour and just kind of play with it and step back a few times, take a look at it, look at my concept and keep working it. And it always helps to make the mural more tighter. There's so much more I could share, but a lot of it is if you're a student and you don't have a lot of mural application in your resume, then what I always tell people is then go do it. There are plenty of places that you can donate, and sometimes you can get them to buy the paint. If they spend $300 buy the paint for you, you do the mural. But the more you practice and the more you just get up on walls, the better you're going to get and the more confidence you're going to get in yourself as a muralist. You just got to go for it. And you can also apply, or Sacramento just did a call out. It's still open. You can be a lead artist, or you can even sign up to be an assistant artist.
That's what I was assistant artist.
Yeah, so you can go under somebody that has experience and confidence, and you can, you know, gain that experience, gain that confidence. And you just like this Hollywood sculptor I met when I was younger, as an artist, I could see another artist do something and I instantly feel like it's a new tool in my belt, if that makes sense.
I like your 3 concepts, your 3 different ways of attacking the mural. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Now, Shane, do you, when doing a mural, do you start with light to dark or dark to light? Is there a specific way you attack color?
Well, he uses different medium. He uses spray cans. When I did mine, I did overlays. I did layer after layer of opaque acrylic. With Shane, he's doing multimedia as well, but mainly spray cans on most of his art, it looks like.
Yeah, the 2020 Wide Open Walls mural I did, it was a portrait that was a woman portrait that was probably about 22 feet, I think, and her face might have been about 18 feet to 20 feet wide. So it was a big portrait. So I rocked out the Wagner. You know, so I got one of those $100 Wagners, and then I pre-picked my colors. And that's another thing that I've been doing over the last 2 years is I really picked the colors. So I'll color match in Photoshop. So I've got a mural that I'm going to do in the Arts District in LA, and I literally have 39 colors picked out for this mural because I want it to just be awesome. Because the more, like, if I'm doing a skin tone, I might have 6 different skin tones or variations to get that really beautiful blend and do it quickly. So I'll come in with a Wagner or a roller and just roll on the base color, so the light flesh tone. And then on my spray cans, I only use 2 tips. I use fat caps and I use skinnies. So fat caps and skinnies are detail, so you can get really, really clean detail. And then you can do eyelashes for an eye and with that tip. And then fat caps give you a big spray, like a 6-inch spray. And that's when I do all my blending. So you'll see in some of my videos, shot footage, and you just see, paint flying everywhere because I'm just fat capping and just.
And
And
then
then
of
you just kinda
course
feel it.
you go for the splash. You like to splash it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just the different, depends on that texture. And then there's some of the colors you pick. I'm learning to pick different colors. Like I don't use black anymore. I barely use some really, really dark reds. There's a spray paint called or a color called night red. And I use night red on Frederick Douglass, and you'll see kind of skin tones in his color. But I probably had 20, 22 colors on Frederick Douglass. But that's another reason why I can execute so quick, because I spent a lot of time in design, picked all my colors, and then I'm just kind of ready to rock and roll.
Renee, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. Super interesting. Thank you.
I know, don't you want to take a class and have him be the teacher?
Yeah, even if
Yes.
get a part of Wide Open Walls, any of the mural projects in Sacramento, especially your students. So what year student are you?
I'm actually graduating this May. So yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, you just tell people, pull the green card, I'm a student. Can I volunteer? And volunteer for Wide Open Walls. I don't know what kind of experience you have. If you don't have any experience getting murals up, then just start getting in the game, meet the other artists, find some walls, just do it for free. Start small, doing like an 8x8 at first, because then you only need like a 6-foot step ladder before you start working into scaffolding or a boom lift or a scissor lift, and because they're expensive. But an 8x8, you can go and totally donate your time, and the materials aren't going to be that expensive.
That's a great suggestion. All right. Anybody else have a question for Shane? Shane, this has been tremendous.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you.
Cindy,
I'm not sure. Am I still muted?
No, we can hear you, Stephen.
Oh, that's good. I have a double bachelor degree in art from Chico State. So I really enjoyed watching Shane do the final touch-ups of the mural he did up on my property in Berry Creek. The only mural I've painted was for Bank of America in Susanville, and that was about 120 feet by 15 feet foot. I have to tell you though, if you're doing a really white wall when you start out and your wall is really white, it'll be like a solar oven. So be ready for a lot of glare on your in your face with a big white wall. It's like a big solar oven. So yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions for Shane? Cindy, did you have a question? Okay. Well, I hope to see some of you come to the exhibit, the MAC. We're over here in Rancho Cordova and Folsom and Mather Field. We're at the train station. It's a we have a pretty good gig here. Shane's been inside, and we are very fortunate to have, I've had some of Shane's buddies out here. Renee, if you'd like to practice your skills in painting, contact me. We've got a couple small walls for Kids Day that we'll be painting outside. They're rolling murals that we're going to do for Kids Day. So because we have to have a drive-through, we're going to be doing a little performance there with doing some painting for them as they go by and collect their goodies. So if that's, nobody has any more questions, I just want to thank Shane. Thank you so much for saying yes to, bringing your art up, and the timing was great. And I really cannot thank you enough.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this means everything to me. So I love it. I love working with other artists. And again, I'm blown away. I call it a miracle all the time that these murals were used to bring hope to so many people who lost everything. And I'm forever changed because of it.
I had one more question.
Yes, Stephen?
There's a rumor that Shane, you used to do billboards.
You mean illegally?
I don't know, legally or unlegally.
No.
You never did it commercially?
No, not billboards.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. If you, our next Zoom is going to be the photographer, Kari Greer, and we're going to run through some slides of her photography, and she's going to talk about how she got into this crazy world of taking pictures for a living of fires. She works for the National Interagency Fire Center out of Boise, Idaho. So that will be on the 16th, which is a Tuesday at 6 o'clock. So definitely love to have you there, and hope to see some of you here in the gallery.
Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Shane, for your work.
Thanks, Shane.
Yeah, thank you for your work as well.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
seeing your
you.
face.
Thank you, Shane.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see how you turn this thing off.